Daniel Jones is the Colts' presumed starting quarterback in 2026, but he's the only one not under contract between him, Anthony Richardson, and Riley Leonard. So, how do we sort out the Colts quarterback situation in 2026? Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. And today's show is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. What is up, friends and family? This is Jake Arthur, the Indianapolis Colts beat writer for Roundtable Sports. And today we're doing a little bit of a bonus, little spillover episode. Yesterday, I sent out the bat signal to you guys all over social media for questions, whether it was Facebook, Twitter, the Everydayer Club, the Insider group, whatever it was. You guys poured in the questions. Got through a ton of them yesterday, but then more kept coming in. So we're going to go ahead and do another little episode now today, again, as a little bonus. So let's get into it because this one's pretty interesting. We have obviously talked about the quarterback room. But it must be hitting kind of a fever pitch right now because we did get several questions about the quarterback situation, which we may not be in general as a Colts sphere talking enough about how things could drastically change from how it looked at the end of 2025 to how it might look on opening day 2026. So this first one is from the Insider program. And again, if you're not part of the Insider program, you could check the show notes and you'll be able to follow the link there. What do you think the Colts may be able to get out of Anthony Richardson if they trade him? It seems that he has talked about with the Vikings coaches and management. So let's just the Vikings portion of it. Kevin O'Connell is a very big fan of Anthony Richardson Sr. That's the Vikings head coach. Their GM has been fired as of in the last week. So how things go down there, not so sure. Maybe that makes it more likely that the Vikings could take on someone like Anthony Richardson to either back up or compete with J.J. McCarthy. So the Vikings certainly an option. I would also throw the Jets in there, maybe the Raiders. I know Tom Brady is probably going to have a lot of influence over the types of quarterbacks they go for. So I don't know. It depends on if Brady is a big fan of Richardson and his potential or not. But the Raiders, Jets, and Vikings are a few teams that might need quarterbacks. You could throw like the Cardinals in there as well. But as for a return on what you might get for Richardson, kind of what I've been thinking is if we're talking realistic and not like what you would super hope to get, you probably start with a baseline of a 6th round pick. I know he was a top 5 pick, whatever, but like that value has depreciated over the last few years. So let's just keep it real. You're probably going to go into it with a base 6th round pick. Now, the Colts are more than willing to do conditional round trades. So let's say it's a base 6 that can move up to a 5th or a 4th based on Anthony hitting certain like milestones or like a certain amount of playing time. That's a lot of those things go that way. Like if we trade you this guy and he plays 75% of the snaps, then it's going to go up around in value. As for like with Anthony, playing time, obviously, I think would be the first one. Like, it's your starting quarterback week 1. Does he hit this threshold of playing time? Does he hit statistical milestones? I don't want to say Pro Bowl because the Pro Bowl and making the Pro Bowl, it's just kind of become a joke at this point. I don't think a team is going to really put that disclaimer out there anymore because quite literally anyone can make the Pro Bowl anymore. But maybe like if he's at least a second team All Pro, then it goes up to like a 4th round pick or something. But I would be floored if the Colts got anything better than a day 3 pick for Richardson. Perhaps like a couple 6th, 7th round picks and a player swap or throw a 5th in there. I don't know. It's just probably not going to be as much as I think a lot of fans would like it to be if we're just keeping it real. Again, it's like when you drive the car off the lot and the value gets cut in half, Anthony Richardson is no longer worth that top 5 pick around the league. Not to say he can't get to that point again, maybe with his potential, But right now, his value really has never been lower. Next one here is from Brad Roney on Twitter. He suggested doing a deep dive on Riley Leonard, how his stats, his positives and negatives stack up against everybody else. And then he made the comment, from what I gather, he should be QB1 in 2026. Don't know about that one. The plan is for Daniel Jones, obviously, to come back from his Achilles and be ready for week 1. But let's just talk about Riley Leonard real quick here. I basically pulled up the numbers between Daniel Jones, Riley Leonard, and Phillip Rivers, the 3 quarterbacks that played meaningful snaps last year. So let's see. Jones played the most snaps. He had 429 dropbacks. Rivers had 97. Riley was in between. I think his was in the 70s. Forgot to jot that down. But of the 3, he had the highest average depth of target on his throws significantly. His was 9.2 yards downfield. He also had the highest percentage of his passes dropped by pass catchers. 7.1% of his throws were dropped by pass catchers. So he was the most aggressive throwing it downfield. And his receiver, he had the littlest help among the quarterbacks from his receivers. He also had the highest percentage of big-time throws, according to Pro Football Focus. A big-time throw is basically a well-thrown ball that's usually downfield or like into a tight window, like basically throws you see and you're like, oh, damn, that's pretty good. Like he had the highest percentage of those throws among the Colts' 3 primary quarterbacks last year. So I would put his performance behind Jones, but probably above Phillip Rivers. Now, like Phillip Rivers has a mastery of the game that the other 2 guys don't quite have, although Daniel Jones is very sharp. But in terms of like productivity on the field, I really liked what I saw from Riley Leonard. But Daniel Jones obviously was playing like an MVP candidate at one point. And then Rivers played very well for what you would expect a 44-year-old who hadn't played in 4 or 5 years to do. So I would put him in between the 2. And then that kind of rolls us into this next question here from Jesse in the Everydayers Club. If Daniel Jones doesn't look the same next year and he fails to reach the level of play that we saw, is there a plan B for the Colts? Do you go Riley Leonard or do you take a swing in the 2027 draft when it's loaded with good QBs? So not this draft, but next year's draft. So that one, what I would do if I'm the Colts, be patient with Jones because they're already talking about him being ready for week 1. He's going to attack this rehab and do great. They hope again that he's their starting quarterback under center. They're gonna make sure they pay him in free agency. Like they're putting a lot of stock in Daniel Jones right now. I do say re-sign him. Obviously, I think you absolutely have to, but be patient with him. Don't force it. Like if you're gonna give this guy $40 million per year, which I assume it's going to be in that ballpark, do not rush his rehab and readiness from an Achilles injury because he's already not going to look quite the same in 26 as he did last year because it's just biology. Like his Achilles is going to hamper him a little bit. He's not going to have the same level of mobility and explosion as he normally does. So just be patient. Don't rush him before it's ready. I'm comfortable with Riley Leonard being the backup to Daniel Jones throughout the offseason and next year. And even if they have to have Jones sit out the first couple games or something, I'm cool with Riley Leonard going out there. I've seen some really good things from him. But I do think they need to grab a third quarterback, whether that's like a young free agent or something, or maybe I don't. Brett Rippon is not. It doesn't really move the needle for me. But like if you take a guy on day 3 or you get a young free agent that's not a project and might be able to, you could do some sort of game plan with him pretty quickly, then I'd be fine with that. And this is, again, presume that Anthony Richardson probably isn't on the team, gets traded or what have you. But yeah, my biggest thing is just don't rush it. You're putting a lot, you're investing a lot in Daniel Jones. I assume they're going to this offseason. Don't make a mistake by forcing him out there before he's like truly ready to go. And again, Riley Leonard, I'm cool with him being quarterback 2, as long as you bring someone reasonable in as the quarterback 3 as well. Let's see here. The last one for this segment, there has been a lot of talk about Michael Pittman Jr. being cut or traded. Could they try to extend him to get his cap hit down like Quentin Nelson? He's such a voice in the wide receiver room and the locker room. It's hard to see him going. That's from Ethan Callahan on Facebook. I do agree. Like, we've obviously talked about a lot about what you do with Michael Pittman Jr. here. You don't want to cut or trade him. Like, that doesn't feel good. Like, he's been a quintessential Colt. He's done a lot for this team. But again, we've kind of talked about the hurt feelings and like the fact $29 million next year is not reasonable for him. There is, to Ethan's point here, there is precedent for the Colts doing something where they extend him and move the money rather than just cutting or trading. So last year, Braden Smith, coming off of, the mental health issues he had, was due $20 million to play in 2025. That wasn't going to be reasonable. So they reworked something with him and his cap hit became $10 million. Perfectly fine. Last year in season, in order to create room to get Jermaine Pratt, they restructured Kenny Moore's deal, added some void years to the end, pushed some salary cap into a guarantee, and they created $3.8 million from that. And then earlier in the offseason, 2024, I think, the 2-year extension they gave DeForest Buckner, again, added some void years at the end, and they wound up creating $14.4 million from the Buckner extension. I think both Michael Pittman Jr. and Quentin Nelson, what the Colts could do is extend both of those guys, and it look a lot like the Buckner thing. Add some void years at the end, convert some salary cap stuff into guarantees or bonuses, and free up a bunch of salary cap space. At least one or two of those guys, I can almost promise that's going to happen. Maybe it shouldn't throw too much out there about it, but it does not seem reasonable to not extend Quentin and then to have Pittman go in making $29 million next year. That just does not make any sense to me whatsoever. But coming up, guys, you guys had some more questions here. Some of them, it's going more into free agency and a few of them into the draft as well. Finding a doctor that you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Let's be real. Sure, you want someone who's in network, nearby, and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so that you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. I'll admit it, I definitely put off going to doctor's appointments longer than I should. I usually, you're supposed to go every year, but maybe you reschedule or don't reschedule at all, and it just goes on too long. You kind of blame the fact that it's not very convenient. But between work life and everything else, it's easy to delay all that stuff. But ZocDoc makes the process very simple, though. You could search by specialty or symptom and actually build a care team that works for you. You can see real-time availability and book instantly. No phone calls, no waiting on hold. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but maybe wasn't the right fit, then you know how important it is to actually nail that hire. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring? Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who are the best matches for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. So spend more time interviewing candidates who actually check all of your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to give help to your give your job the premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying that you heard about us on Indeed. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there's got to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades that you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelled Q-U-O, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. I love how simple Quo makes everything. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal, and it works from your phone or your computer. You can even keep your existing number. Plus, Quo's smart AI tools automatically log calls, summarize conversations, and highlight next steps, so details never slip through the cracks. It's no surprise that Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free, plus get 20% off of your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNFL. That's QUO.com/LockedOnNFL. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, everybody. Thank you for making Locked On Colts your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Reminder to keep the train rolling after the show here over to the Everydayers Club. You can catch our audio ad-free and get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of our show. Go to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join or even gift a subscription today. All right, guys, let's dive back into these questions. We're starting to fade more into free agency in the draft here now. How do your expectations change for free agency now that the news of an extra 20 to 25 million in cap space this new league year is hitting? That's from friend of the show, Ben Aris. So to me, the increase in salary cap up to just north of $300 million for a team, that means there is no excuse not to lock in at least 2 out of the 3 of Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce, and Nick Cross. Including them, I think you have to have at least one splash and multiple modest signings. That's, at least one splash and then a handful of guys that you sign for anywhere from $5 to $10 million. This is when now. The urgency is right now. You have no excuse to sit on money. Like, I know the Colts like to kind of nurse the salary cap a little bit, but you're just going to have to find ways to create more space. We talked about extensions to Quentin Nelson, doing something to Michael Pittman Jr., whether it's a cut, trade, or extension. You might do that again with DeForest Buckner, Kenny Moore, Grover Stewart, Zaire Franklin, Jalen Jones. Like, there is a lot of contracts on the books that are pretty flexible and that you could do things with. So to me, still go to create more, and it just means the more the merrier. That doesn't mean the price for a single player should rise, but the amount of players or the amount of impact players that you go and get has got to increase. So that's what the raise in salary cap means for me. This next one here, this is from Hello Zuko here, 6310 on YouTube. When it comes to linebacker, I know you guys have given your thoughts on some people so far, but what do you think about Aiden Fisher out of IU? So Aiden Fisher's fine to me. His projection right now is day 3. I've really seen a lot of round 5, round 6 from him. Round 4 is probably okay to me. To me, he is a classic, like, Mike linebacker, green dot. He's going to be your communicator, getting guys in the right spots. Usually going to be in the right place at the right time. He is a little more limited athletically than some of these other guys. Like, he's very stiff. You don't look at, I don't see like him in the same breath as like Kyle Lewis or like the guys out of Ohio State or from Georgia. Like, he's a little stiffer. Again, his brain is going to put him in the right place a lot of times, but he does get caught up on blocks a little bit. You're maybe not going to get as many splash plays, but if you're looking for consistency and like sure tackling out of the Mike spot, then I think he could eventually give you at baseline what you got out of Zaire Franklin when you were comfortable with Franklin being the Mike. So I really don't mind Aiden Fisher. I would probably shoot for the stars a little more than that. But, I also don't think he's someone you can move around to Will and Mike. I would primarily trust him at Mike. You just need someone a little more athletic and who's able to kind of flow around the field a little better at Will. So I wouldn't mind taking a day 3 move on Aiden Fisher, but I wouldn't prioritize him a ton. I know that maybe not be very popular because it's IU country, but I try to be realistic about some of these guys. I would want them on the team. I just wouldn't maybe prioritize them over some of the other guys that I would take on day 2. This next one is from Melvin Snyder in the Everydayers Club. Are defensive players day 1 playmakers and game changers nowadays out of the draft? Like we recently spoke about on the show, basically from day 2 of the draft. And I don't think that's like a trend, like that defensive players aren't as ready to go right away. I think it's very, just case by case basis. So what the Colts need to do, though, they have to get guys that are ready to contribute right now. Like if you're going to get these project players, like I guess that's fine. Like the super athletic guys who have a really high ceiling, like it's fine to get those guys. Just save it for day 3. Like your early round picks, you have to get something out of them as rookies. You cannot wait, especially right now. Again, the sense of urgency to win has never been higher. So to me, it means guys who have play strength, they have to have decent play strength and adequate speed. And I would say they also need to have started for at least a year or 2 in college. So they've got to have plenty of experience, preferably 2+ years starting, adequate speed and strength. I think that is what gets you on the field. Obviously, you can't be a numbskull either. Like you have got to have a little bit behind the ears, some football instincts, high football IQ. Those players are always findable. And, we're seeing a lot of older prospects come in nowadays because of NIL, and like there's still some guys hanging over from the COVID years. So I think those players are a little easier to acquire nowadays coming out of the draft. You just got to be willing to do it. And the Colts have been taking some older prospects lately. So fingers crossed they will go ahead and grab some more ready-made players coming out of the draft. And then our last one here, with Mooney Ward possibly retiring and Nick Cross testing for agency, are the Colts possibly looking to address those vacancies in the draft? I would say so, especially corner. Even if Charvarius Ward doesn't retire, I have a feeling corner is almost to the same degree as like offensive line, where the Colts will always look to keep churning there. Corner is just such a critical aspect of Lou Anarumo's defense that I always expect it to be a priority. Plus, like they had some depth last year, but the amount of injuries they suffered was insane. And I don't think they want to get in that same boat. So regardless of whether Mooney Ward comes back or not, I think they're going to prioritize corner. Safety as well. We've talked about with Nick Cross, the $10 million per year line is kind of what we're not willing to cross necessarily. No pun intended. If Nick Cross is going to sign for under $10 million per year, then I think you absolutely do it. What he provides you in the box is really, really important, but he's got some shortcomings in coverage that sometimes cost you points. But otherwise, there's some guys in the draft that I really like. You got to look for like kind of a versatile in-box thumper. That's kind of what I think of Nick Cross. And then at corner, you're looking for kind of height, weight, speed guys. So at safety, VJ Payne out of Kansas State's a guy. Like Bud Clark out of TCU. I think he would fit really well. And then the kid out of Toledo, obviously, if you want to go as early as the second round, but I don't think that he's going to still be there. McNeil Warren is probably going in the first round. So there are a lot of guys at corner. I don't know how early they'll prioritize it, but the kid from Stephen F. Austin, his name kind of escapes me right now, but he's kind of a good one I would look for on day 3. I kind of liked him at the Senior Bowl. Again, height, weight, speed guy who is very aware on the field and has some experience playing. So he's not so green. I think he'd be a pretty good one to look into again on day 3. So that is it for this bonus episode, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in today to Locked On Colts. We'll be back later today with a chat with Sumer Sports. They're out there on Radio Row at the Super Bowl, as well as another edition of the Locked On Colts Squad Show. The NFL honors are tonight, so Zach, Derek, Allen, and me, we're going to be talking Reggie Wayne and Adam Vinatieri being finalists for the Hall of Fame. Do they make it? Do they not? We'll have all of that coming up later tonight. Make sure you subscribe and follow at Locked On Colts so you get all the latest episodes. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and Zach Hicks, at Zach Hicks2 on social media. And again, remember, if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built just for you. Get Locked On Colts audio ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Just head to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join the club. And with that, thank you guys. You have a great rest of the day, and we'll talk to you a couple more times before the day's up.